Hi everyone, I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com, and today I'm here with Brad Andalman. Hi Brad.
Hello.
It's great to have you on the show. Just a little introduction. Brad is the co-founder of 180G, which has produced the incredible formatting tool Vellum. And before 180G, Brad worked at Pixar Animation Studios. So just all-round cool tech guy.
You know, I try.
You try. I know. Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much, Brad. So let's first talk about Vellum because, ebook formatting has been really kind of awful, and I converted back in October and I emailed you guys, and I was like a true convert, like within minutes of using it, and it's made it really fun. And so I wanted to just take you back a couple of years. Like, why did you build this tool in the first place? Where and when did you see the need first?
So, we didn't start out knowing that we were going to build a tool for authors to self-publish. Brad and I both, as you mentioned, the other co-founder of 180G, his name is Brad West. So when I talk about Brad, I'm not talking about myself in the third person. So Brad and I, we both worked at Pixar a long time, and we both decided that, we were done, and we wanted to do something a little bit smaller to create professional level tools, and we just knew we wanted to do that. We didn't have any idea until after we quit, and we talked a lot, and we threw out a bunch of different ideas. They were, some had to do with they ran the gamut. They were all over the map. And so at one point, Brad's wife Amber was reading a lot of ebooks, and Brad got interested in just like why we're both book lovers and book design nerds, and he was wondering, well, how hard could it be? These ebooks that my wife is reading don't look amazing, and how hard could it be? And he looked into it. I was on a motorcycle trip to Seattle to go actually found this company with him and he was looking into it, and when we got together and talked, he was like, this is actually pretty hard. There's a reason why books look different on different devices and stuff like this. There's no one standard way to do this, and this seemed to fit really well with our skill set. We like writing professional level tools. That's what we did at Pixar. But we also write tools for creative people, and that's also what we did at Pixar. And so we thought this is something where we could make a difference. There's a real need for this. And so I finished up my motorcycle trip. We started 180G, and we just started writing Vellum, and we didn't know whether it would succeed or not. And then it's sort of amazing that 3 years later, we're still working on it, and people seem to be enjoying it. And it's been really fun for us too.
Yeah, and it is fantastic. Now, 3 years ago, and this is what interests me, and we'll probably come back to this, but I'm just jumping around. But, I worked in software for a bit. I worked on a software package called SAP, which is one of these enterprise level, really boring software compared to like Vellum. But one of the things I see with software, so first of all, people think that it's finished, like, oh, you've built it, it's done. Yeah. Or, oh, I now output a EPUB format, and that will be the same forever for the rest of time. But compared to a print book, for example, which is, oh, here is the print book, it is finished at this time. So maybe you could explain for people who don't understand how software or IT stuff work, like how does the iterations work? How are you making sure that things are future proofed or backwards proof with devices, that type of thing?
Yeah, so that's a really big challenge for us, because it's not just that the software has features that we want to add, but also that new devices come out all the time that we need to test on. So it's not like, I get this a lot. Hey, you wrote Vellum. What's next? And we're like, we're still in Vellum. And so we stay abreast of the standards, like the EPUB standard. And, we want to make sure to adhere to that so that new devices, if they come out, if they support that, our books will look great. One of the things Vellum does is it tailors ebooks for particular stores as well. And not all of those stores have really great documentation, sort of maybe purposely so, for how best to to create books so that they look great in those, on those stores and devices. And so we're constantly testing. Brad and I both have an array of devices, and also. When we first released Vellum a couple years ago, it wasn't everything that we had planned out. The right way that we felt to release this was to get it out there, and because we felt that it served a purpose and it solved a problem. And so we have a bunch of features as well that we've been slowly rolling out over the past couple years, and stuff that's still to come. And so we've got a list of stuff we want to do, and we're also constantly testing and staying abreast of indie publishing to see, to make sure that what we generate still works everywhere that we want it to work.
So let's get a bit more specific. So what are some of the problems that it solves with formatting? I mean, you've talked there about multiple devices.
Yeah.
So talk a bit more also about the artisty side and creative side, which I think is great too.
So the creative side is kind of fun. We there are a lot of things that are really hard to do, that print books, say, have been doing for many, many, many years. So, for instance, like drop caps, we really like drop caps, and we noticed that not a lot of ebooks were using them, and that was as a really sort of fundamental part of a lot of book design. So one thing we wanted to do was make it easy to add in these different design elements, whether they're drop caps, ornamental breaks, attractive heading styles, and we wanted to make them easy to put in and easy to sort of personalize that as well. So we started with this idea of having a book style, and Vellum ships with 8 different book styles, but within each one you can customize. You can choose a different heading style, you can choose a different first paragraph style. So that was really kind of a fun thing, sort of from the creative side, to be able to really work hard on that and make it easy for an author who's should really be focused on writing the book, and the styling should be, we hope, a really fun thing to do. Like, hey, I'm done writing the book, I'm almost there, let's add some personality, my own personality, whatever's right for the author, for the genre of the book. That's and so that was one thing we wanted to do. In terms of like sort of more nerdy kind of thing, different stores have different image requirements, and so we also, that's really a pain to have to go research, like, what do I have to do to each of my images to make it satisfy all of the requirements of all of the stores. And certainly you could do sort of the lowest common denominator, but then it means that your book's not going to look as good on every store as it could. And so that's another thing that Vellum makes really easy, is you hit generate, and then it creates those tailored ebooks for every store. You can still create a generic EPUB and upload to a variety of stores, but so those are just like a couple of examples, I think, that.
Yeah, and I love that you're so geeky about this, because I mean, I do not want to be geeky about formatting. And what I found particularly amazing about Vellum was the user experience, the UX. It's actually really fun. Like, I'm just like, I tell people, once you try it, and you'll have fun and you'll love it and you'll never do anything else. But I did want to ask that you mentioned images and those ornamental breaks, and I have some nonfiction which I've put images in, and I've used the ornamental breaks. The one question people have around images is that it obviously affects the file size, which affects the delivery cost on Amazon. So is there something in there that it, compresses or makes that better?
So delivery cost is a question we get a lot, and it turns out that, so for Kindle, Vellum creates a Mobi file, and a lot of people think that the file size of the Mobi file is what determines delivery costs. And that's not true at all. So it turns out that a Mobi file contains a couple different file formats inside of it. One is an older, much smaller file called Mobi 7, and then there's the more advanced formatting file that we call KF8. That's the newer Amazon format. And so sometimes, so the delivery costs are actually based on the smaller file format inside that Mobi file. And there's no easy way actually for me to explain right
No.
here. I mean, I could send you the documentation, but there's no real easy way to like explain that, like, hey, when you look at this file, the delivery costs are based on this much, much smaller portion inside that file.
Is that
However,
related to images? I guess that's
so
the question.
images, yeah. So certain things like the ornamental breaks won't appear in that file. So that's okay. Images though will, but they'll be much lower resolution than. And we do that on purpose. So there'll be much lower resolution in that smaller portion. So yes, images are probably the main contributing factor to delivery costs, but it's nowhere near as big as as the actual file size when you look, in the Finder at the file size of the Mobi. However, if you do use multiple images, Vellum will only include that image once in your Mobi file, for instance. The ornamental breaks, we use this file called SVG. It's small. It's a vector-based format, and so it's very, yeah. Anyhow, see, geeky. That's very, very small. So we really do a lot of things to try to keep those delivery costs down, and it's important also not to make that decision like I've tried to hit. Based on the file size that you see,
Yeah. No, I love it. You're solving all the problems, so we don't have to worry about it.
That's the goal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the other thing that really impressed me was the ability to do a box set so much more quickly than, I used to use Scrivener, which was terrible, or people are paying for pretty expensive, to format 8 books into a box set, for example, can be very expensive to pay a formatter because they'll do it by, book size or whatever. So tell people how the box set creation works and how easy it is.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, if it's very easy if you've made all of your the books that you want to include in the box set in your Vellum in Vellum already. So you can just create a new Vellum document, and you can just drag a Vellum book into basically into the Vellum document that represents the box set, and it will create a volume. It will put everything that's in that Vellum book into the new box set. You can drag your 3 or 20 books into one Vellum document, and then you're done. And we have specific table of contents features to make it a little bit nicer to view the table of contents of a box set versus a regular book. But pretty much that's it. We'll also import the covers if you want. Speaking to file size, when you're creating a 20 book box set, you are going to run up against file size limits and delivery costs, because that's just a lot of text. And then if you have book covers for each book, that's also a lot of images. So that's something that we do know is people run into, but you're also creating a 20 book box set.
Yeah,
so.
Which is going to be complicated. But, I just do generally my own box sets are 3 books, and then I've done an 8 book. And the 8 book was so much easier with Vellum. I just went ding, 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 and then just got a cover designed. And I mean, for people listening who haven't done a box set, I think this is a good enough reason on its own to invest, because the return, I make so much more money on box sets from Kobo and iBooks because you're allowed to do premium pricing and they aren't trained to buy for cheap. So you can make, regular $5, $8, $10, $14 sales on those platforms with box sets that you just wouldn't get otherwise. So that to me is a real selling point. So just wanted you to know.
That's useful. Thanks.
That it's really awesome. And I think so many people forget that. Are there any other really cool or geeky features that you wanted to mention?
Store links is pretty cool too, in that and so we have a facility so that you can add a link to your book for sale on a variety of stores. So you just add one store link, and then when you hit generate, Vellum will use the link for Amazon when it builds a Kindle book. It'll use the link to the iBook store when it builds the book for iBooks. And so that's really handy because it encapsulates all that information in one store link. And so if you put that all of your books on sort of like an also buy page. One really fun feature is that if you have that in your previous book, you can just drag the also buy element from one Vellum document to the next, and then you're all set for your next book. So that makes sort of like you were getting at with Boxsets. It makes reuse really, really easy. That's a fun feature. I think, store links, images, Boxsets, the styles. I think those are the major kinds.
And just the ease of use, and I think also the preview, because one of the annoying things, like at the moment, even with KDP seems really buggy at the moment. So like I will upload a new file into Kindle, and then you click the preview button within KDP, and it won't work.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why that's. Oh, is that a known problem right now?
That is a known problem. It's actually been a problem for most of this year, and it happens more often with Vellum books than other books because Vellum uses some advanced formatting that their online previewer just one day decided, there's a bug in their online previewer. It decided not to work. We reported it. They said they were aware of it. They were working on it. They haven't gotten around to it. But their online previewers have notoriously been
pretty
not
bad.
great.
But but Vellum has this previewer, right?
And so that's really great because, for instance, if you have a cover, you can view the cover in Vellum. You can look at it on the iPad. But also a lot of readers are reading on e-ink Kindles, for instance, and you want to make sure the cover reads, for instance. You can switch to the e-ink Kindle, and Vellum will do a pretty good job of trying to emulate exactly what the reader will see. And so we also have heard from authors who we didn't anticipate this use. They write their book and then they sort of like proof on the, they turn on the previewer and they just they find it much easier to read and sort of like think about edits when they're looking at it in the Vellum previewer as opposed to in text edit.
Because it's in the document, and you can preview on like an iPhone versus an iPad or a Kindle or whatever. Right. Which is cool. And when you mentioned bugs there, the main reason I switched to Vellum was that there also seems to be a bug on Amazon with the what do you call it, look inside.
Yes.
With the Kindle look inside. Do you know about that? Like, what happened there?
I do. Well, there's a bunch of bugs with the Kindle look inside. But so the one thing I think you might be referring to is the Scrivener issue.
Yes. That's not really a Vellum issue.
That's not a Vellum issue. The Scrivener issue is just that the way that it constructs ebooks, it makes it creates a bunch of different style sheets, and for every chapter. And what the look inside does is it takes your entire book and it compresses it down into sort of one file for easy viewing on the Amazon website. And as a result, those style sheets that Scrivener creates are sort of like all mashed together, and because of that, unexpected formatting happens. It's hard. It's not really a Scrivener bug. It's just this sort of, and it's not really an Amazon bug. It's just that these ways that it has to do to create this thing results in unexpected formatting. The thing about Vellum is Vellum uses one consistent style sheet for the whole book, and we do that on purpose because we believe in book design, and that's sort of like a tenet of book design is that things are consistent across the entire book. And so we, in a way, lucked out that but also that's kind of the only way that Amazon is going to do this is it's going to take the whole book and put it up on the website. It needs to combine all of these things. And so Vellum books will look great in the look inside. The other thing we do here, though, is that it can take a few days for a Vellum book look inside to update.
Yeah.
So people get nervous, like, oh, it doesn't look like the way that Vellum, that it looked in Vellum. And that's because of the thing I mentioned earlier, that the thing that Amazon does is the first thing it shows in look inside is that smaller, older Mobi 7 format, and then it decides to update to that more advanced Vellum formatting a few days later. We're not sure when it decides. I think it just puts it on some queue and it waits.
It just happened. Well, that's why I decided to move to Vellum, and then I redid like all my books really quite fast and stuck them all up, and the look inside's all fine now. And but I'm really now happy that you guys are focused on that, because I love Scrivener. I'm a huge Scrivener lover, but it's designed for writing software. It's not designed to be a formatting software. And I think a tool the tool should be best suited for purpose. And that's why I think Vellum's great. Now, one thing that is a problem, it's for Mac.
Oh yeah, that's not a problem.
That's not a problem for you and me, but for the listeners, any chance of a PC version?
Well, not right now. We get this question a lot, and we're really focused on improving Vellum, and there's still a lot to do. And one of the problems with for us focusing on PC is that we then stop doing all of the stuff that you asked me about earlier, which is like, how you make sure that you're future proof and back proof is that, we basically have to start over again. And certainly we solved a lot of problems on the Mac side that we will have learned from, but the PC is very different, and a lot of stuff that we're leveraging on the Mac, and not to get into too nerdy stuff, but we're leveraging a bunch of stuff on the Mac that would make it hard to do on the PC. And so we would just, we wouldn't want to leave our Mac users in, on some old version for some amount of time. And so while we never say never, it's something that's not in our plans because there's still so much we want to focus on for the Mac version.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And if people listening are like, "Oh, well, I'm really annoyed," it's like, well, get a Mac. I mean, come on.
You said it, not me, but
well, we're now design geeks, right? So I mean, and when I left my day job as in the old business world, one of the things was I am switching to Mac because I never want to do what I used to do in my day job.
Yeah. I mean, we both have Macs, Brad and I, and we knew that this was where we wanted to start. It made certain things easier. We designed for the Mac. One of the things about the ease of use and everything is that it's designed to be used on the Mac, and so that's we didn't think that people would we would get this question
so much.
But what's interesting is that we've also heard from people who've bought Macs just to use Vellum, which blows our minds. We're super thrilled, and we're really honored that people would do that. But yeah, that wasn't when we first started. We didn't expect that would happen.
Yeah.
So that's great.
And of course, the other question I know people have been asking you is, and you mentioned book design and your big book design geeks. People are like, what about print version? Yeah. What about like a create space? Is that on their list?
That's on the list.
Ooh.
So we've actually been working on that for most of this year, and we're hoping to release in summer of 2017. So hopefully that's soon enough. We'll see. But yeah, it's funny because when we started, it was obviously all about ebooks. Why ebooks are the wave of the future. 3 years ago, I feel like there was way more interest in ebooks. We didn't see a lot of authors with print. And now I feel like that's changing for a variety of reasons. Not that ebooks aren't the wave of the future, but it seems to be a little bit more balanced now. People definitely want both, whereas 3 years ago it felt not quite there. And we love print books. That's why we got into this. And so we wanted to make the experience of creating a print book be just as easy and fun as creating ebooks with Vellum. So
I'm excited about that. I mean, I'm thinking about more and more print products myself. I think the reason why is because print on demand has been around a good number of years, but it's becoming much more cost effective. Like it used to be that print on demand, it was barely worth doing. It was just for marketing and it was just for that price comparison. But now it looks like the cost of print on demand is coming down so much that it might be worth more authors doing it. So this is great. And then sort of on top of that, the thinking about I've only used Vellum really for fiction, non-fiction, mostly plain text type books. Like one of the questions I get a lot is from children's book authors who do mainly illustrations, or textbook authors, or people who really want to do much more image-heavy books. So forgetting the file size argument, more about book design for ebook or print, is that something that you think Vellum's good for, or is that coming?
there's some things in there that I think Vellum's good for, and there's some things that probably, without massive changes, we're not quite suited for. So I think the things that we're good for is, Vellum creates what's known as sort of reflowable text ebooks. And that's so that these books look great on a variety of devices, from like the smallest iPhone to the iPad Pro, or to Kindle Fire. All of these, we want it to look good on all of those devices. Children's books, or like some of these like sort of photography books, those where you want complicated layouts, and that's really not where Vellum, what Vellum was designed to do. And something like iBooks Author, which is designed a little bit more to do that, is something better. Obviously the downside there is that if you generate an iBooks Author, it's going to be hard to get on Kindle.
Oh, yeah.
That said, the great thing about Kindle is that you've got so many different kinds of devices, from including like e-ink, Paperwhites and stuff, and that's not the best way to view a children's book either. So it's unclear that if you're doing that, you want to be able to sell those on Amazon.
But you will want to do print, so
yes, yeah, you will want to do print, exactly. As far as like nonfiction, and those books, that's something where that is something where we know that we've got some features that we want to do, and we don't have that on our schedule because we've been focused on print and what it means to do print, and what everything from the features that print needs to how that pricing is going to work into Vellum. So we've been focused on that and not on some of the other features. But once print gets out there, then we're going to take a step back and really take a look at some of those features.
What people want, I think. And I think you're right to focus on print. It really is the big thing that a lot of people want. And you're running a business. You have to choose the things that make people want to buy it. So, do you see any, just thinking about the sort of looking forward in ebook design, there's been a sort of GIFs on covers and embedded media and video. Do you, where do you see ebooks going? I mean, even like Amazon's latest Paperwhite, the Voyage, is an even more perfect black and white reader. Do you see it staying like that or becoming more weird?
Maybe both. I think books have been around a long time. Our goal was to bring great book design to the ebook world, and for a lot of people, that's really just making it look fantastic in a black and white e-ink world. So but we're from Pixar. We get excited about these new things, and so we're definitely keeping an eye on embedded videos. We think it would be cool to include, sort of like in a fantasy novel, some animated maps. We've seen a couple compelling animated GIF covers as well, and all of those things are really interesting. But because we want to make sure that Vellum creates books for a variety of platforms until they gain a bigger foothold, really, I don't think that we'll be supporting them super soon. But I think there's always, to answer your question, I think there's always going to be a place for just just the standard books, because once you're in the story, it's great to have music playing. It's fun to see videos, but like once you're in the story, that's really, I think, what matters and I think for the vast majority of our authors too, that's what they're concentrated on. So that's what we want to do. We want to make the design serve the story and not distract from it, but and still look beautiful.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, you mentioned that 180G. So the company is not called Vellum. That Vellum is one of the products, which I think is very, well done on that, because thinking forwards. But there's two more things that I would like, so I'm just throwing them at you.
Okay.
The reporting sales and income across the different stores, which is not available. Yeah. It's only really available. There's a PC one that I bought a PC for, Tracker Box, but I hate using the PC. It's awful. And also a collaboration engine, a bit like ACX for co-writing that splits the payments. So I think certainly that collaboration engine, I can see that actually being a lot of money, but it's like a escrow type payment thing, which could be complicated. So one is a tool and one is a kind of engine. Do you think those types of things are in your future, or what are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Like I mentioned, we're sort of heads down on Vellum and certainly in print right now. But yes, we started 180G to write tools for creators, and we sort of fell into ebooks and the indie publishing world as a whole. That's not where we started. Like when our first few ideas, we had ideas for apps all over the map, not just in indie publishing. But that's not to say that, now that we've spent some time here and we're meeting wonderful people and we understand some of the problems in this field, that we wouldn't, we're certainly not opposed to trying to help people in this regard as well. Those aren't on our list, right now. But honestly, print is the only thing on our list right now. We're staying pretty focused.
No, I get that. And it's funny. I mean, I keep talking about these two things that I want in the hope that somebody will eventually sort them out, or I'll just have to stop talking about it and do it myself. But as I said, having worked in software, I have no desire to get into it. You have to have a mind like yours and a kind of yours and Brad's. You have to be geeky.
We're geeky.
You are, and I love it. This is brilliant. So I wanted to ask you briefly, we're coming to the end of our time, but, you worked at Pixar and everyone's like, oh my goodness, that's like a dream job. But you and Brad left. And so you left and I'm sure it's a job still, and you're doing your own thing. And many authors are facing this decision too. Should they stay at their day job, whether they love it or not, or become an entrepreneur? So what have you found surprising about the shift? What are the pros and cons that you've found about this?
So, I mean, both Brad and I mean, Brad was there a little bit longer than I was. We stayed there around 15 years. So this is a long time at Pixar. And it is a great place to work. But so, you need to, when you leave, it's a big decision. And we made sure that we could actually deal with trying to start this company and not have any income, basically, for a year or more, and that can be really, really hard to do. And we were lucky that we prepared for this. We knew we were going to do this, so that's hard. Some of the social things are also hard. Like I am in my warehouse space. I wake up, I sit at my computer, 6 p.m. comes around, I'm done. Whereas at Pixar, I used to talk to dozens, of people, and is a very social, a social kind of thing. That said, it's I would say, yes, quit your day job, become an entrepreneur. That it's been fantastic, and the ability to sort of to the control that I have over my job is obviously much, much different than what I had at Pixar. And there's both Brad and I worked on the next generation animation system at Pixar, and we put a lot of hours into that and feel like we both contributed, a huge amount to that piece of software. But that's still Pixar's thing.
Yes.
And this is our thing. And so there's just like a different feeling when you're working on something that's your own. And that doesn't make that, I wouldn't trade my experience at Pixar for anything, but this is something else, and I get a lot more satisfaction out of this success we have with this than what occurred at Pixar.
Yeah. So. Oh no, that's great. It's great to hear, and it's funny, that social aspect, isn't it? Because I'm an introvert. I imagine you're an introvert too. Yeah. A lot of techie people are as well. And but even when you're an introvert, you kind of miss the having people around and just the casual chat, and you kind of have to force yourself into. I call it the sort of social dating. You actually have to start asking people in your network out for coffee.
Yeah, exactly. It's and that to introvert, it doesn't necessarily come natural, whereas I think that just sort of happens when you're around a lot of people. And so I find myself being like, oh, I should see someone today or
Yeah.
this week, you know.
I should leave my flat.
Should leave my house, yeah.
But no, I think it's good, and it's one of the things that people really forget. I mean, yeah, you've got to have some money in the bank, but two, actually, you have to have some humans around sometimes, you know. And even if you're with someone, like, you know, being married, my husband would come home and I'd be like, because I hadn't talked to anyone else, and he's like, yeah, I think you need to maybe find some friends or something. So that's great. But I guess having a co-founder means that you guys are in touch quite a lot as well.
Yeah, we talk all the time. And, you know, I guess that's another thing that has been great about this is that having a co-founder, having someone else to bounce ideas off of, in at least in software, I think I see a lot of people doing this as authors, but also I understand why you might not, you know, necessarily need or want a co-author, but at least with software, in this, it's been great. You know, we can go twice as fast sometimes, and but also just to bounce ideas off of, it's important to have that sounding board. And so, yeah, I mean, working with Brad, I mean, I knew it at Pixar and I know it now. Like, you know, it's he's incredible. So it's really great that we've got this, you know. That we've formed this little team.
That is great. That's why I want this collaboration engine, because I think there's so much that can be done when people do stuff together. But you know, if you have to form a company every time you want to do something with someone, it becomes kind of crazy.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. But just a final kind of general geeky question. You know, in terms of stuff that I'm sure we read some of the same blogs, and some of the same stuff. And I'm really interested in the VR, the AR for storytelling. And, you know, having been at Pixar, and think, you know, obviously nothing to do with Vellum, just in terms of your own interest. Do you see storytelling moving into this AR, VR space, and anything you're excited about in that way?
I see that getting bigger, certainly. And some of my friends, both from Pixar, probably actually many from Pixar, have left to do VR stuff. I know a couple other people who have started in VR stuff. And it's really, really interesting. You know, do I see all of storytelling moving that way? I don't. And it's a different thing. Like I get a lot of questions from people who are like, oh, you know, movies are going to be all VR in the future. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I think there's just like movies didn't kill books, VR isn't going to kill, you know, movies or books. But it is interesting. And it is, you know, I think the combination of like storytelling and video game and just like this immersive sort of world, I think is really, really ripe for new and interesting kinds of storytelling. And so I'm excited to see where it goes. I've seen a couple. I've put on the goggles a few times. It has a ways to go. But like the strides they've made in the last few years it is
incredible. I mean, do you think, because of course the Kindle, when it came out 2008, 2009, changed the ebook world and changed the world for authors, and just, I imagine it was when MP3 for music, you know, it was like a radical shift. Do you think we're at that 2008 stage for VR yet, or are we still in the sort of before then?
I think we're in the before then. Okay. I mean, I remember, we'll see. I think it's certainly, I remember hearing a lot about VR in the 90s. We're definitely beyond that point now. It's more interesting. I mean, actually, AR. I got my brother's kids addicted to Pokemon Go, for which I'm eternally sad. Sorry, but like AR seems to have crossed that threshold from being just this thing that people would talk about to actually in everyone's hands. Now, Pokemon Go seems to have sort of like that excitement has died down a little bit, but I think people sort of like intuitively understand that. I still think that like a lot of people still are not exactly sure what it means to put on the VR goggles and sort of immerse yourself in that world. So I think we still have a little bit of ways to go before we get there.
Yeah, I mean, most of the people on the planet don't know what an ebook is, so I am more excited about that at the moment. But okay, well, look, this has been super interesting. Tell people where they can find you and Vellum online.
You can find Vellum online at vellum.pub. Yeah, and so Vellum is free to download, and you can play with it, and you can format your book, and you only need to pay when you're happy with how the book looks in the preview, and then you can pay, and you have the ability to generate your ebooks. So go to vellum.pub and see what it's about.
Get the free version, and I think that's great. I think to give people the chance to play with it first is a really good idea. So yeah, I really urge people to check it out. So thanks so much for your time, Brad. That was great.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun.